Well, they say moving up in the world is all about who you know, and it can be argued that nobody understood that more than President Trump. The fixers, the bottom feeders, crooked lawyers, gossip mongers, and porn stars who created the 45th president is a new book detailing the tight circle of associates that propelled Trump to the Oval Office.
But some of those associates were involved in questionable schemes along the way and have paid a heavy price to defend the president. Joining us now is co-author of The Fixers and investigative reporter for the New York Times, Michael Rothfeld. And Joe Palazzolo, who is also a co-author of The Fixers and an investigative reporter with the Wall Street Journal. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
So you guys helped to break the story about the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and that was sort of the seed for this book, right? To let everybody know how it started.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So reporters generally find something interesting, or there's a thread that they start pulling on, which leads to a larger discussion, which leads to more investigative reporting. How did Stormy Daniels become that thread, and what did you uncover once you started to pull?
Well, so it actually started in 2016, right before the election, and that's when we found out about Karen McDougal. We had learned, basically that the National Enquirer, which is run by this guy David Pecker, who was close to Trump. The Enquirer had been just like slamming Trump's political rivals throughout the entire campaign, and they had also paid this woman, Karen McDougal, about her story for an affair with Trump. We learned about that. We got we went to Grand Central Terminal and met someone who gave us a manila envelope that had the contract with it, and her retainer agreement. And we found out about that, and then we learned around the same time that the lawyer who represented her was also representing Stormy Daniels, and so we reported that out for the next year or so.
So you sort of go through all of the people that helped out in the process, but before we even get to that, right, before he's even running for office, there's Roy Cohn, who is kind of like, I think he's sort of continuously looking for his Roy Cohn.
That's a great point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's been, ever since the passing of Roy Cohn, President Trump and private citizen Trump has been looking for the next Roy Cohn in his life.
That's right.
So can we talk about what he did as an attorney / fixer for the president, and sort of how that shaped his rise?
Well, he was Trump's model of a fixer. He was an attorney for Trump, and he helped him with his business, and he also introduced him to politicians, and he helped him manipulate the media, and he taught Trump all of these lessons, like, you just say whatever you want to be true, regardless of whether it's true or not. You can lie, you argue anything that you don't like. And so Trump took this throughout the decades, and as you mentioned, when he went to the White House, he's looking for people who were willing to do anything for him. I mean, he found them in other people in business along the way, but at the White House, he sometimes struggled to find people who would kind of do whatever he wanted.
Right.
And Michael Cohen, the president's former attorney who went to prison, did he sense that? He sensed that President Trump was looking for a Roy Cohn type, and he thought he could play that role, and yet he wasn't really a Roy Cohn type.
No, he wasn't as good of a fixer as Roy Cohn, but yeah.
Clearly, he's in prison now.
Yeah, right.
He was attracted to Trump's star, and he really, wanted to be close to Trump. He was a taxi medallion lawyer from Long Island who wore a gun in an ankle holster and wanted to be somebody really important, and he found that by doing whatever Trump wanted, and he's part of this crew that's in our book, which, after we did Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, we wanted to explore this world that led us to where we are right now. I mean, most people don't realize, as we're in this season finale of the reality show that's impeachment, how Trump got to this process. So the book tells the story of all of these different oddball characters, hustlers, muckrakers, where Trump refined what he's doing now in the White House over the years. And it's something that we're all part of, because we buy up this celebrity power and media storylines that have kind of infected our politics.
And one of those characters that has sort of fallen by the wayside in the story, because it happened earlier with Stormy Daniels, is the publisher of the National Enquirer, Pecker. Right? And so what it kind of occurred to me is, I understand that his job was sort of to ingratiate himself to celebrities and movers and shakers because he wants to get information so he can print it in the magazine. But he really, really, really wants to be in Donald Trump's circle when he's pretty successful on his own, and he doesn't need...
I mean, we showed photos of him with JFK Jr. and other stars that at the time were way more influential than private citizen Trump.
And so my question, and this is a conversation that Vlad and I have all the time, is about many powerful men now we see in politics, successful men with honorable legacies, or they're on their way to honorable legacies, do almost anything and say almost anything to remain in Donald Trump's good graces. And it's got to be more than they're scared of a tweet. What do you think compels a Cohen who's, he was an okay lawyer, he was doing all right, he lived in a pretty high rent apartment building, I'm sure he got sort of a greater boost from his association with Trump, but these are people who are pretty successful on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone brings their own motivation to it. In David Pecker's case, we found other sort of catch and kill deals, him trying to suck up to people in power. We report that he bought this photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance. It was him on a couch in a compromising position, and he spent 20 grand on it, right, to take it off the market and to protect someone he was doing business with. Schwarzenegger at the time, he was working for their fitness magazines. But he has this kind of history of inching up to people with power. And I think in Cohen's case, as Michael said, he wanted to be someone. He wanted to be someone important, and he saw Donald Trump as a vehicle for that.
Yeah, Pecker was, as we tell in the book, he's the son of a bricklayer. He's this overweight kid who then gets trim and rises like kind of above where he started and becomes the head of these magazine companies. And so it's where he came from. He goes to this important place, but he's constantly craving being close to people like Arnold and like Trump and like Ron Perelman, the investor, and kills stories for Perelman. So it's just part of this world that he wants to be, and Trump is like, and attracts many people to that world. And
he really does, yeah.
I'm very curious, and this is in your book, but when President Trump, candidate Trump, private citizen Trump was thinking about running for president, I look back at his track record, and most of his positions were positions that Democrats take. It seemed to me very whimsical that he decided to run as a Republican, because a lot of his positions were not Republican positions. They were not conservative positions. He certainly didn't lead the life that typical Bible Belt Republicans advocate for. What was it that, other reporters have said that, sometimes the president will remark, this is kind of an act, and I can't believe I keep selling it and people keep buying it. But what was that moment that he decided the GOP was the way to go?
And I think that the reason that he thought that he had a chance in the first place was like his myth making. He'd been so successful at it over the time, and like part of it was, American media, like David Pecker had been helping him out, promoting his career. He had a very transactional view of media for that reason. He had over time, insane positions, things that weren't true about his business. He'd been able to insert his myth into the media perfectly. And so I don't think that his formerly Democratic policy positions were an impediment to him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, in '99 he was running for the Reform Party, and Pecker was helping him. That's when Pecker came to the National Enquirer. So he's like running columns for Trump, and he ended up he was allied with Jesse Ventura, the former governor, who was also a wrestler. And so Trump is kind of wherever he could find his niche, and he found it in the Republican Party.
Does he find this? Is there an affinity? P.T. Barnum-like. In other words, P.T. Barnum liked sort of kind of crazy people, weird people, bottom feeders, as in the title of your book, people that society would reject. Polite company would not invite into their homes. P.T. Barnum said, come on into this big tent of mine. Is there a little bit of that in Trump?
Definitely. I mean, we call this like whole crew the vulgar circus, right? So you mentioned P.T. Barnum. It's a circus. Trump is the ringmaster, and the National Enquirer on the supermarket checkout counters is getting his message out to people across the country over the years, and becoming part, in a way, of the mainstream media, bringing like OJ into the mainstream media, bringing Trump into the mainstream, and becoming his authority derived from telling people they're fired. And really, that's the whole world that we tried to create here, and it was so much fun, like looking into it.
Have any of the bottom feeders, crooked lawyers, gossip mongers, or porn stars reacted or responded to your book?
We haven't heard from them so far, have you?
No one's complained yet.
Okay, great. Well, it's a great book, and there are many, many books sort of diving into who the president is and who his circle is and all that sort of thing. I have to tell you, the producer who produced the segment said this is one of the best books she's ever read.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's
been really, really fascinating. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
The Fixers is out now and available at all major bookstores. Michael Rothfeld and Joe Palazzolo. Thank you both again. We appreciate it.
Thanks.